to take your company value to 300 million. We gon' show you how to do it. Well, we got the roadmap, your aspirations. We'll give you a game plan and strategies. Seize control of your company's destiny today by tuning in to Private Capital Mastery. Yeah. Let's start the show.
Welcome back to the Private Capital Mastery podcast and community. I'm your host, Brian Franco, and today we're going to be talking about the evolution of family offices. So not everyone knows what family offices are, so I'm going to let you know, and Danielle Patterson, who's joined with me, is going to let you know why family offices are a great alternative to venture capital and private equity. And with that said, Danielle, thank you for being flexible, meeting today. We were originally supposed to meet last week, and I got stuck in Dallas.
Oh, no worries at all. It's like airlines these days and weather. I'm just happy to get the opportunity. So thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. So you founded the family office list. Tell us about what you're doing there, and let's unpack some more details as we go along.
So actually, my journey, I acquired it, which I know that's your world, M&A. 8 years ago, I partnered up with the founder who actually started it in the early 2000s. He was at that stage in his career an emerging fund manager. Douglas Fathers, he launched his first hedge fund. And like many entrepreneurs out there, you know, once you kind of exhaust that circle of family and friends, you start exploring ultra high net worth. And he stumbled upon family office. And, you know, back in the early 2000s, even less then was known, and there were little to no resources. So he dug in, he did a lot of extensive networking, built this spreadsheet effectively. And because he's an enterprising guy and has all sorts of financial service companies, advises on, you know, raising capital, he realized this is a great resource, and he monetized it. So for years, the family office list was just that. It was a list. It was an Excel spreadsheet, and he had a system for quarterly updates. You know, what he lacked was that kind of sales and marketing. So that's really how I first joined the team. And I really brought, my husband jokes, I sprinkled my fairy dust on the business, and it really started to take off. I think it was like the right time, right place. But the more I learned about the sector, the less I loved what we were selling. Because being the marketer I am, I wanted to advise people on like, what's the best strategy? Now that you have the list, how do you use it?
Yes.
And a list is like spray and pray. So I was like, you know what? I see the potential here, and I've just kind of been on a mission ever since. So, you know, 8 years in the making has brought me to where I am now. It's a dynamic platform, really designed so clients can subscribe to the data, which like first and foremost needs to be meticulously maintained. So we have a dedicated research team. But then it's really all about alignment. You know, there's that saying, once you've seen one family office, you've seen one family office. So we try to kind of like break down and help you hone in, work smarter, not harder, to identify who might be that right aligned partner, and really kind of understand what are their values, how do they make their wealth, and more importantly, where are they looking to reinvest? And then from there, it's really, okay, you have the direct contact information, but how can we help you further connect? And so there's a lot of strategy and guidance and a whole partner ecosystem to support our subscribers.
Well, knowing you and what I know of you, you are that magic fairy dust on this business. You've done a great job, and it's really cool to see how the platform's evolving and how you're working to really bring capital to opportunities in the marketplace. So I'd love to take a step back, because of our listeners, there's folks like you and I, we're very familiar and comfortable with what a family office is. And there's going to be some listeners that are a founder, operator, or CEO of a business, and they really have no clue what a family office is. So what is a family office?
Great question. And I kind of joke, because you could literally ask a room of family office professionals and they would all give you a different answer, because it really is a structure or an entity formed to manage the wealth and often household affairs of these typically exited founders. So, you know, in the US here, it dates back, say, we were talking earlier about the Rockefellers. You know, they've made a substantial amount of wealth, a family-owned business. And then their goal is to really pass that wealth on to the future generations. So they often set up investment vehicles. They often have, tax and accountants, specialists to help with transferring the wealth. And so it's a completely different game than if you think of the goals of, say, a venture capital firm or a private equity firm. It's going to be a much longer horizon, and
Yes.
typically much more like values aligned source of
Yeah.
capital. So yeah,
Yes.
there's no one size fits all, but what we do know is at least there's some form of classification. We've got, your single family office, and
Yeah.
that's going to be, the individual, say, exited founders and their family's wealth. But then what we found is it's estimated you need to have there's no rules, there's no guidelines, which is also why it's such a gray area, but they say around 250 million minimum in assets under management to justify the cost that it really takes to properly run a family office that will last the generations. So not everyone has that wants to have this vehicle. So
Right.
you get the multifamily office, and that's kind of like pooling the resources. So you have these professionals that are collectively managing the family's wealth. And
Yes, which becomes an alternative asset in their portfolio, and it's a growing segment, as you and I both know, which is exciting because there's a lot of great opportunities out there in the marketplace, seeking capital. And let's face it, traditional lenders, traditional, investment groups. I mean, sometimes these opportunities could be too small or just not the right fit. Where, to your point earlier, family offices are, they're when you think about where they're situated in a very advantageous place. And they're situated there because you said it, they're exited founders, right? So we preach about and talk about this all the time, when our clients are seeking or looking at an exit of their company, then what's next in their life? What's that next chapter look like? And I'll tell you right now, it's yes, you call Danielle, you get connected, and you think, but the reality is the returns on these sorts of alternative investments are very impressive. And I like to call it smart capital because, the equation always is 1 + 1 = 3 or greater. And that's because they're shoulder to shoulder with you. They're not breathing down your neck and asking you why this and why that. I mean, they want to participate in that growth because they have a vested interest in you and your success, because your success as a founder and entrepreneur is their success as an investor. And the fact that you're aligning these two parties through your platform is amazing, because this is not the first time it's been done, as you know, and even the evolution of the family office list being an Excel spreadsheet, you're bringing it to life. You're bringing it to multiple dimensions by way of helping people navigate through or evolve beyond the spray and pray strategy to the what I call the sharpshooter strategy, right? We don't have all the time in the world here on earth, right? So
anything to save
we need a
time, make it more efficient,
collapse time, right? And
Yeah.
you've collapsed time. You've created a time machine, Danielle.
Oh, well, and it works for both ends, which is kind of exciting because for years I did feel like I was just serving the capital raiser. But, I mentioned I just attended an event, a family office event in Chicago, and a lot of the next gen that were speaking on panels really talked about how the family dynamics are shifting and they're being involved in the actual investments. They're not just having managers, make these selections in traditional assets. They're doing more venture and direct, and they're kind of going after things they're excited about. So in one example, Tyler Weinke went off to medical school and decided he'd rather work for the family office, but he wanted to take his passion for science and medicine, and he's has a venture fund where he looks for med tech opportunities. And there were a lot of examples like that. And it's exciting to see, a lot of these guys, they are investing in the founders. People invest with people, and they really want to, they've got that entrepreneurial spirit, and their capital can bring so much more than just, a check to the table.
Yes, the smart capital, right? The smart capital. Because a lot of these families, they've been there and they have done that. And what I'm speaking to is They know how to grow businesses to scale where others want to acquire them. That could be by pubcos, it could be by private equity groups, it could be by other larger strategics.
Mhm.
But they know the playbook, and when you could attach that playbook to the capital, you're certainly collapsing time. You're getting to critical mass much faster than you could and would on your own, and you're doing it with less risk because that risk is spread amongst the stakeholders involved in the business itself, but also the investors stepping into that investment with that operator or business operators. And it's playbook that, like you said, has been utilized for decades, if not a century, right?
Yeah.
And to see what you're doing and see how you're doing it is powerful, because as you and I both know, there's an increasing role of family offices in the marketplace. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's, because of the debt markets shifting the way they have? Do you think it's, private equity is changing their focus? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you find? Because you have these conversations all the time.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. They actually say in the last 3 years that the volume of family offices has tripled. Now,
Wow.
my own expertise in our database, we have about 4,500, because what we do is
Yeah.
we curate those we see actively allocating. But they say there's now upwards of like 15,000, and it's not just like a US phenomenon, they're everywhere. And I
Yeah.
think the increase, there's a lot of like historical landmarks, but basically I think they've lost trust in 2008 with the big financial crisis. They lost trust in some of the more traditional methods and wanted to start, taking back some management of their own wealth. And now with technology and these tools, I think they are able to access alternative investments and kind of, create these firms so much easier than it previously or historically was done.
Yeah.
So I think, there's obviously a lot of tax advantages to having a
Yes.
family office, and there's a lot of freedom and flexibility, speed that comes when you're making those investment decisions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see that it's really taking off, and then it's exciting to see maybe founders that come to me that didn't necessarily ever think of that. They just thought, oh, that it's an untouchable, like, how will I ever um, get an introduction, where they're
Yeah.
actively seeking aligned deal flow too. So
Exactly. Exactly. And Meritage Partners, our advisory firm, we spend a lot of time with family offices, with equity groups, with venture groups, working hard to align the right opportunities or the right capital with the right opportunities. And the technology that you're developing and have developed certainly collapses time for us, a firm like us, but also for those that are, seeking the capital by way of their advisors or their teams, what have you. Do you see, with these family offices, I mean, in those that are tuned in and listening, where are they investing? Are they investing only in venture companies, startup companies, growth companies? Are they looking for the owner that wants to exit their company? All of the above? I mean, help the
yeah,
audience understand that.
all of the above. And I'm going to go back to the quote. You're like, once you've seen one, you've seen one. And what's fun is now there's a lot of cool data analytics tools, because I'm just extremely visual and I love to see the
Yeah.
graphs and how it's broken down.
Yeah.
You know, we literally, I think we have 122 sub industries, so you can really like get
Wow.
granular about what they're investing in, but it just kind of speaks to
Yeah.
it's everything, and each one's a little
Yes.
different. Trends that are cool to follow. Camden Wealth, UBS, does an amazing job. Like, they will survey a large pool of family offices and put together reports, so you can at least try to follow the trends.
Mhm.
And just with market volatility and rising interest rates, sometimes that does have an effect on, where they're looking.
Yeah.
Some are risk adverse, where some, like one family office that subscribed to our database, like, actually uses the downturn in markets to find opportunities, and they invest in commercial real estate. And so they're experts, and they have over 50 years of experience navigating these cycles. And so it's in the downturn, they want to find other families who maybe don't have the expertise, but they have the capital to deploy. And so that's, just like a case study of how they can, leverage our data to find that aligned partner, and then, be that trusted expert
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I appreciate you. And if you're interested in connecting with Danielle, we'll have in the show notes ways you can connect with her and her team so that you can be connected into their platform and start your journey in finding that right capital. And if you need that guidance, of course, that's what we do here at Meritage Partners. But more importantly, we want to make sure through the Private Capital Mastery podcast, you're learning about these strategies, you're learning about these methods, and really how do you become how do you put yourself in a position to access that capital for your growth? Until then, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week as we unpack and demystify more of the private capital markets. I'm your host, Brian Franco, and this has been another episode of the Private Capital Mastery Podcast.